Every artist has a toolbox. Inside this toolbox are the elements of art. There's line, shape, color, form, space, texture, and value. There's 7 total. This video is going to focus on the element of art called texture. Click the link below for a free guided note sheet to follow along with this video. Let's start by defining what texture is. Texture is how something feels or how it looks like it feels. When we talk about texture, we can either see it or feel it. When we actually feel a texture, like running your fingers through the fur of a cat, that's called actual texture. It's how something physically feels. Another example would be if you run your hands along a bumpy wall, or if you place your hand on a textured artwork. A good way to explore actual textures around the world is to take a piece of paper and some crayons, put the paper on the wall that's textured, and rub your crayon to reveal the texture that comes through. This is called a crayon rubbing. The second type of texture is referred to as implied texture. This is how an artist visually renders textures. There are lots of different explorations to render texture as an artist. Let's try out a few. You'll notice that each of these techniques uses a lot of line, value, and form. This texture being drawn is to make something look like it feels sharp. We're making a bunch of sharp, shaded cones and adding a little bit of a drop shadow to make them look like they really stick out. Let's try to draw another texture. This is going to be a wood grain. Let's start by drawing the wood and then creating a lot of varieties of lines to create the texture in the wood. You can add some notches. Notice that most of the wood grain here is all going the same direction. If you run your hands along this wood, you can imagine what it would feel like. As you're exploring texture, you can also work in some color to see how that also works with bringing the textures to life. Let's try to draw a woven fabric with detailed stitches. We're going to draw 5 tiny lines vertical, then 5 tiny lines horizontal, and repeat this over and over and over again. The more detailed this is, the more realistic it'll look. Let's try to render a soft folded fabric, like a towel hanging on a door. For this, I'm going to start by sketching out the fabric very lightly, and then I'm going to start using my knowledge and understanding of value to render some of the shadows and make it look like it has an actual folded fabric texture. I'm going to really push the contrast. One of my favorite textures to draw is bumpy stones. I'm going to start by drawing a variety of organic shapes of different sizes with little gaps in between. Then I'm going to start to fill in the gaps with a dark value. Our goal is to make each of these stones look like they're 3-dimensional, and we're going to achieve that by adding some shadows. I'm going to add a little bit of value on the inside of the rock to make it look more rounded, and then just darken some of my edges. Our last texture exploration is grass. This is an easy one. A bunch of loose lines of different thickness going in lots of different directions to give it that grassy feel. So what textures will you create? Feel free to try out some of these techniques or come up with some of your own. There's so many possibilities. I hope you found this video tutorial to be helpful. Feel free to subscribe for more videos from Make a Mark Studios, helping you to make your mark through art.